Christopher here, recording a second video for the Porcupine Publishing Kickstarter campaign for the Elephant Macaw Banner RPG. In this second video, I'm going to talk about the magic systems. I hope it won't take too long because the magic systems use the same ability system that I discussed in the first video. But before I get to that, a little context for those who aren't familiar with Brazilian culture. It's been heavily influenced primarily by three other cultures. One would be the European culture, mostly Portuguese. Second would be African culture, mostly from the region around the Gulf of Guinea and the Congo region. And thirdly, by the indigenous peoples, and primarily the Tupi people who lived on the coast during the part of colonization. And so if you look today at Brazilian language, at Brazilian food, at Brazilian dance, all of these were heavily influenced by all three of these cultures. A lot of contribution from all three. And that is why in the Elephant Macaw Banner there are three magic systems to represent those three cultures. So first off, we have the divine graces, which would be miracles practiced by holy persons of the Christian order. In second place, we have breath powers, which are based on the Tupi pajés, which you could also translate as shamans. Finally, we have the Ifa powers, which are based on the Yoruban tradition, practiced by Babalawos and Iyalawos. So a person can only be a follower of one divine power or supernatural power. They have to dedicate themselves to it. And that dedication is represented as a base ability. So each of these paths has a base ability. For the divine graces, the miracles, that would be faith. For the Brazilian pajés, shamans, that would be breath. And for the Yoruban practitioners, the Babalawos, Ayalawos, that would be Ifa. That's what we call those three base powers. And just like all other abilities, those three base powers have three levels. And for each level, you have a certain number of energy points you can use that day. So you can think of that as a kind of mana pool to use the powers. And that goes from 5 on level 1, 10 on level 2, and 20 on level 3. That base ability also limits how high you can get with the related powers. So if you have level 2 of the base ability, you can't have above level 2 with any of the powers within that group. So level 2 faith, for example, could only have up to level 2 faith-based powers. The powers work the same, the tests are the same as the abilities I discussed in the first video. The only difference is that the level of difficulty is based on the power that you're trying to use. And I'm going to show a few examples here. So this first example gives you an idea of a faith power. Here we have the faith power miraculous events. So if I have level 2 in faith, I can get up to level 2 in miraculous events. And the difficulty of the feat is based on what power I'm trying to use of miraculous events. So there are three different powers related to miraculous events. Prolong the weather, which can keep it sunnier for long or keep it raining for longer. Prolong the day, which allows the group to miraculously travel for a much longer period without the day ending. And divine coincidence, which is a very interesting power, which basically begs for divine help that could, if the feat is successful, it's going to arrive in a surprising way. So that's a really interesting ability. And as you can see, Prolong the weather would be an easy feat, Prolong the day, intermediate, and divine coincidence, a hard feat. This second example shows one of the breath powers called Spirit World. In this case, the easy feat allows communication with spirits of the dead. The medium feat allows a spiritual voyage where the pajé can leave their physical body and travel through the spiritual world. And the hard one is transportation, where the pajé actually takes their body into the spiritual world with them, and they can travel to another place using the spirit world. And in this final case here, we have Ifa, and Ifa power influence. 3 levels. The easy level is calm, which helps to calm someone down who's agitated or angry. The second one, intermediate feat, is change sentiments, which helps push someone toward your cause. If someone's kind of on the fence about supporting you or supporting one of your ideas, you can use this to sway them. And the hard feat is a full-on enchantment, which causes the person to follow your orders for a period of 24 hours. So that should give you an idea of some of the powers related to these three areas. For each area, there are several powers available, and those are developed individually, just like any other ability, going from level 1 to 3. The amount of energy used also depends on the difficulty of the feat. For an easy feat, the attempt will cost 1 point. For an intermediate feat, 2 points, and a difficult feat, 4 points. And you'll spend those whether it's a success or not. Just like with other abilities, you can attempt a feat over your level. Just like in swimming, even if you're a beginner swimming, you can try a difficult feat, but you have very little chance of success. And it's the same here. I'll show a quick example. So this example uses the influence ability I mentioned just a moment ago. Someone who's practitioner level, which is level 2, and they attempt enchant, which is a difficult feat. So basically someone with an intermediate level attempting a difficult feat. It's going to be hard. They roll a 10, add the practitioner bonus, which is 6, which gives a total of 16, which is less than the 18 needed for success in a difficult feat. So there's one other detail I need to mention. People who use powers don't use weapons. They shouldn't aggregate weapon abilities and shouldn't use weapons, which get in the way with their divine powers, with their connection to the supernatural, to the spiritual world. That being said, they are excellent support characters, and that's primarily their function in combat. But they can make a huge difference. The +1, +2 bonus they can give and other effects they can use during combat make a big difference. And when they're not using powers, I highly recommend using abilities like defense, assist attack, protect, which I'll mention in the combat video, so that you can use them basically every turn in combat. But you know, some people don't like playing support characters. However, I will say that the powers provide excellent role-playing opportunities. The Elephant Macaw Banner is much more about role-playing than combat. As I mentioned before, XP doesn't depend on combat or victory. It depends more on role-playing and meeting goals. And these power characters are excellent for that. You have the pajés who can communicate with the dead. That can be a real game changer. I mentioned powers like divine coincidence, which you know, can be really excellent for role playing, can be a lot of fun during the matches. So these are great characters to play and get a lot of role playing out of. And you know, another really interesting thing about all this, I didn't make up these abilities. I researched them. I looked at you know, a lot of texts, a lot of the Jesuit texts about miracles from José de Anchieta and other Jesuits at the time, and I just put those into the system. The same thing with the pajés. I studied a lot about their powers and just put those into the system. So it's really based on the actual traditions, these powers. And it makes it easy to add in other powers as well. Just put them into the same system. People in Brazil have done like fan power systems for witches, for necromancers, and for others, and it's very cool to see those coming out. And I think that's most of it for this video. Once again, you know, it's easy to use the magic system. It works exactly the same as the other abilities. And in the next video, I'll speak more about combat. If you're enjoying the videos and really want to see this system in action, once again, please take a look at the Kickstarter page. We would really love your support. And I think that's all I have for today. So thank you very much, and until the next video.